Hi, friends. The 8-minute devotion is still on our summer break, but we'll be back with brand new episodes in just a couple weeks, starting September 9th. Until then, enjoy this re air of one of our classic episodes. God bless you, and I'll be back really soon.
Hello, and welcome back to the 8-Minute Devotion. This is our Thursday episode and our second last episode on the I Am series, looking at the 7 I Ams of Jesus in the Gospel of John. And we are looking today at the last of the I Ams, of course, when Jesus said, I am the true vine. In John 15, we started reading verse 1 to 5, and now we're extending a little bit into the chapter. But Jesus said, I am the true vine. And we've been looking to see, what does the true vine give us? As the true vine, what does Jesus do? We've seen that he prunes us, he cleanses us, he makes us fruitful, he connects us to each other. Yesterday we saw that as the true vine, he answers our prayers. And now today we see this. Number 6, the true vine gives us fullness of joy. Fullness of joy. Jesus said this in John 15 and verse 11 in the same discussion about being the true vine. This is what Jesus said. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. You know, the words of Jesus here are so comforting. He said, I have spoken these things to you, all of these teachings in the upper room, all of this life-giving truth that I'm giving to you. I'm telling you all this so that your joy may be full. Friends, full joy comes through connection with Jesus. Don't you want a life full of joy? Who doesn't want to be happy? Who doesn't want to be joyful? All of us do. And Jesus said, I have spoken to you so that your joy may be full. He wants his joy to be in us. He wants us to have fullness of joy. Friends, God wants you to be happy. Don't try to be spiritual and disconnect happiness and joy. You know, I've heard sermons where the pastor says, God doesn't want you to be happy. He wants you to have joy. Well, did you know happiness and joy are the same thing? In the Greek, it's the same word, for happiness or joy. Of course, with the language the New Testament was written in. In English, you look at the definition of happiness, it says to have joy. You look at the definition of joy, it says to be happy. Happiness and joy are the same thing, ultimately. Now, of course, what those preachers are trying to say, they're equating temporary good feelings to happiness and lasting good feelings to joy. That's the point they're trying to make, but there's really no distinction there. It's true, though, that God doesn't want you to just have a short buzz of happiness. He wants you to have long-term happiness. He doesn't just want you to have the fleeting moment of joy that sin brings. He wants you to have the long-lasting, deep, meaningful joy that righteousness brings. But you see, we don't need to disconnect and say, well, happiness doesn't matter. Happiness does matter. Happiness is joy. God wants you to be happy. God wants you to be happy. And you know what we need to understand is that Christianity is not to be somber and dour, serious and straight-faced. It's not to primarily be what we're like. Yes, there will be times that we're sorrowful. There will be times that we're serious, times that we're full of reverential awe of God. Definitely there will be those times. But that's not to say that our primary way of dealing with the world, our primary way of going through life is to be serious, dour, straight-faced, tied up. No, Jesus himself was not like that. The true vine himself, he was full of joy and happiness and laughter, and he wants us to be full of joy. How do we know that he was like that? Well, of course, the Gospels give us many pictures of his joy. They give us many pictures of his happiness. But even when you think of the fact that little children love to be around Jesus, do little kids love being around people who are always strict and serious and frowning? No! Children love being around adults who are happy, adults who are smiling, adults who are playing. And the children love to be around Jesus. Even the sinners and the drunkards and the tax collectors and the prostitutes. Do you think if Jesus always had a frown on his face, those drunkards, the alcoholics at their parties, they would say, "Whoo, let's be around this guy." No, the reason they wanted to be with Jesus was because they saw something in him. Even while they were still in their sin, they saw a joy in Jesus. They saw a life in Jesus. They saw a fun-loving part of Jesus. Now, of course, he never condoned their sin. He never joined them in the sin. He was always righteous and holy, and I'm sure he preached and he taught them But he didn't do it as a strict taskmaster. He did it as a joyful man, teaching them a better way of life. And I'm sure many, 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 of course, we know some of the prostitutes got saved. Some of the tax collectors got saved. I'm sure many of the drunkards and gluttons and many others we didn't read about got saved as well through the joy that Jesus had. You know, God wants you to be full of joy. Full joy comes through connection in Jesus. The true vine gives us fullness of joy. This is backed up as well by Psalm 16:11. In his presence there is fullness of joy. Lord, in your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand there are pleasures forevermore. We receive joy when we are in the presence of our Father, when we're in the presence of Jesus, when we are connected to him, the great I am. So if you're going through life frowning, if you're going through life depressed, this isn't to condemn you. I know life can be tough. I know that the modern life, even things we've gone through with COVID-19, the pandemic, it can wear us down. It's not to condemn you, but it is to say, look, there's a better way. You don't have to continue living in depression. You don't have to continue living down. You don't have to continue being irritated and depressed and cranky and angry. You can be full of joy because Jesus gives joy to those who are connected to him. Come close to him. Come close to him in your life. Come close to him in your prayer. Bring yourself close to the Lord. You know, C.S. Lewis talked about this, one of his most famous quotes, but he said this, a bit of the extended quote. He wrote this: I do not think that the life of heaven bears any analogy to play or dance in respect of frivolity. He said, I do think that while we were in this valley of tears, cursed with labor, hemmed round with necessities, tripped up with frustrations, doomed to perpetual plannings, puzzlings, and anxieties, certain qualities that must belong to the celestial condition have no chance to get through, can project no image of themselves, except in activities which, for us here and now, are frivolous. He continues, it's only in our hours off, only in our moments of permitted festivity that we find an analogy. Dance and games are frivolous, unimportant down here, for down here is not their natural place. Here they are a moment's rest from the life we were placed here to live. But in this world, everything is upside down. That which, if it could be prolonged here, would be a truancy, is likest that which in a better country is the end of ends. Joy is the serious business of heaven. If you didn't understand all of that, what he's saying is this: down here it may seem frivolous to spend all our time in dancing and joy and celebration, but perhaps that's what heaven is like. In heaven, these things that are a truancy down here, that are a waste down here, seemingly, that's the actual condition of heaven. There will be endless joy. There will be endless laughter. There will be endless rejoicing in the presence of God. Down here, joy can seem a waste, but joy is the serious business of heaven. And real joy comes by being connected to the true vine. Thank you for listening. We'll be back tomorrow on the 8-Minute Devotion.
Thank you for listening to the 8-Minute Devotion. We trust you've been encouraged and blessed today. Please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or by visiting the8minutedevotion.podbean.com. For questions or comments, please email us at the8minutedevotion@gmail.com or visit our Facebook page. We would love to hear from you.